Jelly Roll, whose legal name is Jason DeFord, just received or recently received a unconditional pardon from the state of Tennessee's governor, Bill Lee. So before we get too far into this video, the first thing that I want to do is congratulate Jelly Roll on his pardon. As an ex-convict and somebody who knows exactly what it's like to want a pardon, I am going to stand right here and say congratulations to Jelly Roll for receiving his pardon. I know this is a big deal for him. His rights are fully restored, and I celebrate and congratulate Jelly Roll. Now, I'm going to get into some controversial and probably unpopular opinions at this point. So if you're a fan of Jelly Roll, then please don't be offended. I want to be able to dissect this pardon that he received from an opposing viewpoint, from a viewpoint of someone who doesn't have fame, popularity, and finances to be able to pull something like this off. Now, I know that some people receive pardons who aren't popular and who aren't famous, but usually the people who pull those pardons off are from prison, and they're being supported by groups like the Innocence Project, which helps people with finances and resources. Because the reality is, to get a pardon, you need resources, you need attorneys, you need people in your corner who can help you navigate the legal system so that you can successfully receive that pardon. So if the Innocence Project is actually helping you out, then chances are you're sitting in a prison, and you've been sitting in that prison for 20 plus years. When the Innocence Project is involved, that means you're doing hard time, and chances are you're doing a life sentence, or you're doing something like 25 to life, or you got 20, 30, 40, 50 year sentence. So the Innocence Project is now involved trying to help you get out. Now, the Innocence Projects will help people get pardons, but what will happen with a pardon that comes from something like the Innocence Project, usually they'll get the case brought before the pardon board, and the pardon board will then pardon the convict or the inmate and set them free. In other words, they might have a life sentence, but they might give them life with the possibility of parole. And then they'll look at the 20, 25, 30 years that they did, and then they will pardon that individual. They'll be pardoned, but they won't be abstained or forgiven of their offenses and set free with full, complete civil rights restored. They will still have that paper and that criminal charge hanging over their head. And look, if you did 20 or 30 years, you glad to be out of prison. You really ain't worried about your voting rights and your right to bear arms. But now back to Jelly Roll. Somebody like Jelly Roll, who has been convicted of a crime, and they want to get their rights back to vote, to travel, to bear arms, and just to not have to fill out that application form that says, have you been convicted of a felony? Check yes. That is very annoying, and it stays with you for a long time. Society has to find a way to allow individuals who have been home for a long time and who have proven that they can stay in society as productive members. I'm a tax-paying member of society. I do not break laws. I abide by all the laws. I file my taxes annually. My license is updated whenever it needs to be updated. I carry a TWIC card, and I have not been in trouble with the law since the 1990s. The 1990s was the last conviction I had as a criminal offense. I have not had a criminal offense since the 1990s. I've had a couple traffic infractions since then, but that's about it. But I'm a convicted felon. I'm still a convicted felon. So every time that I fill out an application, or the topic of have you been convicted of a felony comes up, I have to check yes, and then I got to jump through a bunch of legal loopholes. I got to go get this paperwork and this information. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, man, I've been released from prison for 20 years. 20 years. I haven't been convicted of a crime in almost 30 years. But I still got to check, been convicted of a felony, and I still got to jump through all the loopholes. I am currently in the process of trying to get a job in the state of Louisiana that requires the approval of a Louisiana license. And I am working with the Louisiana Licensing Board, and I am going through the process for the second time, because these people are crazy. And they're asking me for all this information. And some of the information on my criminal record is so old, it's hard to even pull that stuff up. Probation and parole don't even have a lot of stuff that this board is asking for, but they're still asking for it. And so I have to jump through all these legal loopholes, and I still don't have this job. I'm like, at this point, I'm like $200 and $300 in trying to get the job. And that's not counting my time and effort and energy that I put in to filling out all the applications to get this Louisiana license. And the person I'm dealing with, I really want to tell him something else, but I'm keeping my cool because I'm tired of having to explain myself. I have all my rights restored, supposedly, right? I can vote. In the state of Louisiana, after you off paper, you can vote. So I've been voting for pretty much the last 18 years of my life because I didn't have much parole. I had less than a year of parole because I did almost all my time flat and then good time loss and all that. So I'm sitting here looking at this story with Jelly Roll, and man, it excites me that he got his pardon. But what worries me is this, and this is the controversial part, and this isn't hating, this is looking at it from a different viewpoint. What can the states do to guarantee that someone who does not have fame and notoriety or money and connections can also receive the same pardon that Jelly Roll received? This stuff should go under a mandatory review after so many years. I don't know what that amount of years should be, but I feel like 20 years is a legitimate amount of time to prove that an individual has proven that they can stay a productive member of society and they're not going to commit no more crimes. And even when you get a pardon, your record is still there in the sense that they know who you were and what you did. They didn't remove your fingerprints from the system. Your fingerprints are still in the NCIC database. For, the federal database, they can still find your information out. So Jelly Roll's fingerprints didn't disappear, but he can now carry a firearm to defend himself. And I think one of the things that Jelly Roll said was that he was hoping to get this pardon because it would help relieve him of the burden having to pay so many security officers, because of course he's famous and famous people need to have security because they got other crazy people who try to do other crazy things. So he felt like if he can carry a weapon himself, that would make him feel safer for himself and his family, right? He wouldn't have to pay so many security officers because now he's armed and now he can defend himself in the event that something goes completely crazy. And I think that's a legit reason. I, as a convicted felon, do door dashing, right? I'm blessed to have got a job doing door dashing. I didn't know I would even get that, but they did allow me to do it because my felonies have been so long and I still had to answer the questions, And I do door dashing, but I got to go into some rough areas and I'm not strapped. I can't have no heater, you know what I mean? So I still got to use my hands and I'm older, you know what I mean? So them youngsters will probably whoop up on me if you get 5 or 6 of them. So I can't defend myself. I got to hope the cops get there in time. And if you know anything about the cops, they cannot always get there in time because they're understaffed, right? So this is just something I'm thinking about. People should be able to go under a review board automatically to get a parole granted after being out of prison for so long. Your record on what you do should make a difference. You should be able to go to the board and say, hey, look, this is all the good stuff I've done. And listen, I'm not bragging on myself. And if you've been watching the Pen and The Shank for any amount of time, you have an idea on some of the stuff I've been through because you've been watching my videos. But I don't barely ever bring up all the accomplishments that I achieved in the last 20 years. And I promise you, I might not be known for selling records, but I've done more than you can imagine, possibly, probably, and likely more than Jelly Roll did to help people in society. That's how much I have done to help people. I have been involved from the ground level to helping people all the way from Hurricane Katrina. I rebuilt houses for nothing, for free, basically, to help people have a place to live. I was a part of many outreach programs, missions trips. I was constantly giving my time, energy, and effort to the local communities in the 9th Ward of New Orleans, local areas, the church, The list goes on and on and on. And I got a stack of achievements and certificates like this. I would like to get a pardon. I don't have the resources to go fight to get that pardon. I don't have a connection to Governor Jeff Landry. He doesn't know who I am. Nobody's going to be like, hey, that's Greg. You know what I mean? This dude, man, has done a lot to change his life and change society. I have got a lot of credentials since I've been out of prison. I've held jobs down. Held one job down for over a decade. There needs to be a different way for other people to get pardons. And I congratulate Jelly Roll. He's not the only one who received a pardon. Lil Wayne received a pardon for President Trump. NBA Youngboy, he received a pardon for President Trump. There's other famous people who received pardons. You know what's crazy? Martha Stewart still hasn't received a pardon. Because I was looking up pardons, and Martha Stewart has yet to receive her pardon. And if anybody deserves a pardon, it's Martha Stewart, in my opinion. Think about it. Insider trading, every single one of them crooks in Congress are doing insider trading. But Martha Stewart, she's the only one who took the proverbial sword. Somebody always got to take the proverbial sword. But I'm just, flipping the coin here and saying on the other side of it, what about the average person who's not popular, who would like to get a pardon, who deserves to get a pardon? Would Governor Bill Lee have signed that same pardon for somebody who wasn't popular and who had clout and cash like Jelly Roll? Would he have? And listen, it was a psyop. It was a photo op, right? There's a photo of the governor signing Jelly Roll's pardon. So this is for publicity. Let's not be stupid. I think he wanted to do the good thing. And I think Jelly Roll personally deserves the pardon. But from what I understand, and I could be wrong, somebody correct me in the comments, Jelly Roll's last offense has been over 5 years ago. So he's roughly 5 or more years outside of his last crime or the last time he was on probation, parole, or any kind of trouble or substance abuse or anything. Man, I'm 20 plus years with doing what my man Jelly Roll's doing, probably even more. And I ain't got no recognition. Nobody knows about it. And I don't need no recognition because I store my riches and treasures up in heaven. But I would like a pardon. I would like to have my rights fully restored. I vote, right? But I would like to keep and bear arms, to be able to protect my family and just to have that right again. I mean, I feel like my father, he never did get his rights restored, and he didn't have nowhere near the amount of crimes that I did on his record, and he never got his rights restored. He died without his rights being restored, and I wish he could have got them restored because he deserved it. He didn't do all the stuff that I did when it came to, being involved in the community with community outreach and all that, but he didn't get in trouble neither. And he worked and kept his job and did what he had to do, I mean, he still drank. He was an alcoholic for most of his life, and that's something I'm not. I don't struggle with substance abuse. Some people do. There's a record. I mean, I know that there's not a short amount of people who will come sign an agreement, including law enforcement people who were involved in law, and say, hey, man, give this dude a pardon. They trust me. I'm just saying, man, there's got to be a way for everyday people that aren't famous to get a pardon, who have lived the same life that Jelly Roll lived and the same life that Lil Wayne lived. But Lil Wayne and Jelly Roll are popular. And so much more attention is going to be brought to them. And congratulations to Lil Wayne for getting his pardon. I think he deserves it too, I'm from New Orleans. Lil Wayne's from New Orleans, But, congratulations to him. He got a pardon. And he didn't, he just had a gun on him in the wrong state. And so they hooked him up. But that's just what I'm saying. And so at this point, just give me a like and subscribe to the Pen and The Shank, and share in the comments what you think about my thought about average, everyday convicted convicts who have lived a great life and they have a track record to prove it. Should the states and the government have something in place to where they can automatically go before a board, so they don't have to go get attorneys and everything else to do it, and then they can bring their case before the board and say, look, this is what I've done in society, and I would like a pardon. I think I deserve a pardon. That way everybody gets a fair shot. Anyway, like and subscribe to the Pen and The Shank, the most unusual and unique crime and prison channel experience on YouTube, man. Let's get it.